Hello YouTube, another weekend of competitive Pokemon Pocket is under the books and another week begins, but this one's a little bit special. We actually had two tournaments hit over 800 players. I'm talking about Godsley 1K tournament and also Ursi Days Pocket Weekly, one hitting 810, the other hitting 940. That's huge. There's a lot to unpack, there's a lot to talk about. So I think today I'm going to give you my thoughts on this meta, show you some cool decks that are emerging, show you some decks that are falling off, as well as give you like my kind of top 3, especially because if you guys don't know, there's a $10,000 Pokemon Pocket tournament that you can register for right now. I am currently registered for it. It's super sick. I'll put the link in the description below. That's me. But essentially, yeah, this is a huge tournament, and if you want to get into it, it's free to enter. You just need a limitless account. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the meta and what things will look like heading into this 10K tournament. So it's kind of funny. I made this tweet a few days ago, right before the weekend, and it was just a little joke. I was like, I just made every meta deck that has come out in the last stretch of time, and it feels that way, right? I think that a lot of decks are adopting the Greninja Giratina package, the rare candies, the professor researches, the Pokemon, it's all core, and you just add whatever package, whether that's Oricorio, Snorlax, or a new one that we will be talking about. I've even seen Darkrai run Froakie Greninja. So there's a lot to talk about. Let's start with Ursi Days Tourney. This is the bigger one, but there's a lot of information here. I think that, Greninja, Giratina, as you can also see from this top 8, is everywhere. I think the thing though is the stats do not break down what these decks actually include, which is extremely frustrating for me as someone who wants to really cull through data. But that's what I'm here. This is my job, to cull through data for you guys. But before we begin, I want to put eyes on a very interesting deck. Mok Moko ended up using this very interesting Arceus Crobat Darkrai Giratina deck. And you're like, why am I highlighting this deck? So this deck went 8-0 in Swiss, and then they did not show up for top 64, where the eventual winner, MST, would win. So I'm like, that's crazy. This guy shows up, goes 8-0, forgets to show up for day 2, but they had such an insane deck, and it's a deck that I want to highlight, and is kind of the cool part about building decks in Pocket. Using the Dark Energy Crobat Arceus duo. And if you guys remember from last set, there was the Arceus Darkrai Giratina that ran Dawn. This is essentially that, but times 10 on crack, right? Because you have Crobat, you have Darkrai, that's 50 from both of them a turn, and you hit the Arceus, that's 130, that's 180, that's a lot of damage. And of course, if you just draw into the Darkrai Giratina line, you can end up, chaotic, Broken Space Bella, and playing it like how you would play a Darkrai Giratina deck, except you have the Crobat reach with an Arceus. And I think that's so cool that this guy managed to play these two very separate decks and combine them and went 8-0 and then forgot to show up. So really cool. I think that this is a deck that deserves a spotlight, and if you are someone that has been wanting to try something different with Darkrai Giratina, this might be for you. I saw a user in my Discord hit 1900s with a version of this, replacing Guzma for Sabrina. So lots and lots of cool things to look out for with this variant. Another deck I wanted to highlight, because you'll see it, and if I don't talk about it, you guys are going to be like, what the hell, was Cobweaver using a Rockruff Aerodactyl Rampardos deck. So I think if you're familiar with Chatot, this kind of does the same thing. You're guaranteed to start Rockruff, you're guaranteed to Signs of Evolution, grab your Lycanroc, and then you play the 2 fossils, and whichever one you hit, right? Because I think one of the things when you're playing Rockruff Rampardos is that you are at the mercy of finding a Skull Fossil. Now you're at the mercy of finding Skull Fossil or Old Amber, which is just slightly higher odds, right? So I really, really like what they ended up going for. I like the Giovanni. Giovanni allows you to reach 60, and of course allows you to hit 140. And you can also hit Lele, which is, spoiler, is going to be a very big deck that we're going to have to talk about. So really, really cool stuff. Another cool deck that if you're feeling lost on your climb, you can do something like this. It's very good into the new Lele deck we're going to be talking about. It's very, just very consistent, right? So I think it's really neat. Is it the best fighting deck? I still believe Garchomp Rampardos is the best fighting deck, but I think that this is an option. And I think that for a deck like Rockruff Lycanroc that was falling off, this breathes new life into the deck. Congrats to Cobweaver for getting a second top 16. And finally, the winner of this tournament was a Tapu Lele Greninja Giratina. Who could have seen that coming? Me! I saw it coming. Why? Because I played in this exact tournament. I started off 3-0, but I had to drop out. I had to drop out right here because I had to go to my locals, and I got it paid off because I ended up getting first and second place. So if you made it to this part, please in the comment section below congratulate me on my locals. But regardless, this was the deck list I ran. Let me explain the deck, right? I was gonna probably make a video on this eventually, but now the deck is extremely meta, so I might not be running it on ladder as much. So this is my chance to talk about it. Lele is really cool. Again, this is following the same construction that I put out here, with like a little bit of thoughts, a little bit of changes, right? And why you would play this is you're playing solo Psychic Energy. You're going to put the Psychic Energy to charge up this Giratina as fast as possible. And this Lele is going to put pressure on the front, right? If a Darkrai is charging up, you're going to deal 20. It incentivizes them to not charge up. But if they're not charging up, you're going to get this Giratina charged up. These Greninja pings are going to start dealing damage. And you're basically going to be forced to charge up. This deck has a really good positive matchup into Darkrai Giratina. Has a really nice matchup into quite a lot of meta stuff. Snorlax as well. Oricorio is like kind of even. But it's really, really cool to see this deck pop off in the way that it did. It is a solo Psychic Energy deck. The Energy Arrow is extremely, extremely cool. It deals damage. It mounts up so freaking fast. And it's very easy to misplay against this deck, right? Because it's so new. I was casting the tournament, which I didn't even mention. I got to cast this entire tournament. It was really hyped to do that. So shout out to Ursiday for giving me that opportunity. But I got to preach the word on this deck. It is so good. I'm running a Frogadier because I wanted consistency, because the deck really, really wants Greninja. I think of the Greninja variants, Greninja Giratina variants, this is either the best one or second best one, and we'll get there when we get there. PCL is just important healing when you're playing Giratina. Double Cyrus because you're playing not only Lele that can attack anywhere, but also Greninja. And then finally, you know, Giant Cape for safety. And I ran X-Speed because a lot of Greninja decks try to keep you locked in active, and being able to X-Speed out is so silly. And, you know, yeah, I had to drop at 3-0, but guess what? Toby over here, using a very similar list, in fact, the exact same list as me, ended up top 8ing, right? So I think that this deck could have easily won the tournament, and I'm glad to have been on the right deck. And I also want to say that this didn't like come out of like my brain space, like I just made this and we both came to the same idea. There was a Japanese player that peaked #1 using a very similar variant, so that's where me and Toby ended up getting our idea from. And then obviously MST also got their idea from really strong Japanese players, but kind of made it their own, and is the tournament winning list. So again, big congrats to MST. They are one of the best players, also a very good content creator. They've recently made a YouTube. They've been streaming on Twitch consistently. So I'm giving them all their flowers. I love them so much, and it makes me so happy that they were able to do so good. Their only like difference from our list being the Mars over the X Speed, which is really good in tournament play, right? And the Pokemon communication over Frogadier, because you need that consistency. They use Pokecoms, I use Frogadier. I think it's very preference based. I just think Iono is at its weakness, and this is my first real meta thought. I think Iono is extremely weak right now, because at most you're only really allowed a Iono for 3, and that's just because of the presence of Mars and Red Card everywhere, right? But again, this deck really strong. If we look at MST's run, right, they played against a variety of meta decks and came out on top. They did lose to obviously a Darkreitina, but Darkreitina can play into anything, and they lost to Koji, who, if I am not mistaken, was playing the mirror match. Really strong deck, right? Like I said, this deck came and swept the tournament by surprise. I think it did use the fact that a lot of people were not ready to play a deck like this. Shout out to the follow on Twitch. But yeah, really cool to see this deck do as well as it did, and get ready to see this deck on ladder everywhere. I'll talk about my thoughts on how to counter it. So I personally, first, one more tip. Prioritize charging up Giratina over doing a 20 ping. Like, especially against Darkrai Giratina, because they can heal a 20 ping. It's harder for them to heal a 40 ping. That's my only advice with this deck. And if you watch MST in the tournament gameplay, you'll see that he does the exact same thing. Counterplay. I think this deck, despite having Lele, is weak to Charizard. Because Charizard just goes too fast for the Lele damage to matter. Especially if you get the Lily, because you heal through a Lele. The other Lele, if it attacks, by then the Giratina isn't charged and you just win the game. That said, and also like when you do your first Stoke, you're at 80. So it does 80, 100. So if you have any form of healing, you're good. MST using Mars. Mars is really the only way to slow that type of deck down. And that is what you're supposed to do against it. I think that the Decidueye is really good. We're going to get to a few lists. Spoilers, the current rank 1 is using the Decidueye Meowscarada, and it was a response to counter this deck specifically. So lots to think about. I think that Rampardos Garchomp doesn't have the easiest time, but has a time, right? Because they're all low energy guys. So those are its like kind of weaknesses, but then it's good into like every other deck. So that's enough of my glazing on this deck. This is currently the best time to use it. If you haven't, you're gonna miss the window. But it is a meta deck that will stay. I can see it do good in that 10K tournament. And of course, the other deck, which I think is a competitor and might be honestly the contender for best deck in the format. It is Greninja Oricorio Giratina Shaman. I just made a video about this deck. This is the more classical version, right? You're playing Shaman. We love to see the double Irida, the double Cyrus. I think that double Irida is core. I saw a list with 2 Giants Cape. Double Irida is just better. The potential healing is just better. And this deck is just really freaking good. It just has like an insane win rate into ArcRaiTina, which we haven't talked about ArcRaiTina yet. We will eventually talk about ArcRaiTina, but this is just a really strong deck that has all of the answers that you can ever ask, and it just has a playable matchup into everything, right? I think even its biggest weakness, Rampardos Garchomp, you can still make plays around, right? Because you have the explosive potential of an early Greninja, especially because this is playing water lightning energy. Greninja can attack. You have the stall of getting up a Giratina, and Oricorios are actually safe against Garchomp, so it tends to be fine. I think this deck is just super playable into everything, has a response to everything, and because of that, is one of the best decks that you could consider bringing to a tournament. Really, really cool. I was considering bringing this deck until I found the Tapu Lele deck, and I was like, oh, I can prey on people's inexperience versus Tapu Lele, and I can win this tournament. But I had to go to locals, and MST won the tournament. So big congrats to MST. Just really cool stuff. The Guzma is just because, you know, you want to remove Rocky helmets. I've already talked about all this in my last video, so just watch that video. But this is honestly contender for the best deck in the format. I think it's giving ArcRaiTina a run for its money. Spoilers. And let's talk about the runner-up. And I think that this is the best deck in the format, asterisk. And you're wondering, what's the asterisk for? This is the best deck in the format if you are starting Carnivine, Crobat, Arceus every game. Because it is just impossible to deal with. You basically win every single game if you start Exodia. I think that this deck has a playable matchup into every single deck because of how strong Carnivine is, because of how strong the Crobat pings are. Dealing 80 a turn for the cost of having Arceus is insane. What is this problem with this deck? It's inconsistent as hell. It is so inconsistent. You are never going to get the start, that Exodia start with Crobat, Carnivine, Arceus every game. But if you do, you're going to pop off. And I think one thing to note is that, at least in the Ursi Day tournament, there was quite a few, 2 in the top 8, right? 1 getting 2nd, 1 getting 8th, and quite a few in the top 16 just outside. And like I said, they were poised to win the tournament, but they did have a very crucial brick. And that's just the deck. That is just the deck. I do love that the runner-up did run an Iono for consistency. I did say that it's not the best right now, but you need it. If you're playing this deck, you need Iono to get your stuff, right? So like, it makes sense. I can see you drop it, but I think it makes a lot of sense. Even when I was dripping the hater rate, and I think it's fine because this is one of the reasons why this is a good deck for Iono, is because you're not trying to make big Iono plays. You are a deck that plays your Zubat, your Carnivine, your Arceus is extremely fast. So Ionos are being used extremely fast too. So really cool. PCOM is goated. It is just going to be your searcher for Crobat or Arceus most of the time. But really cool, really strong deck. The Leaf is necessary for Arceus starts. And the Cyrus is Cyrus. There's not much to say about Cyrus that isn't. This deck is dealing so much damage fast that a lot of people are going to switch out, especially the plus 30. So they chose to use Cyrus. You can use Sabrina. There's a lot of different cards that you can use. Heck, I'll pull a different list. I'll pull Dilution's list, right? Let's see what the top 8 guy. And you'll see that it was a bit different, but kind of the same at the same time, right? They're using Sabrina. They're using a Golbat. Why a Golbat? Because you want that consistency. Didn't I say that the Crobat consistency is important? They're running Iono and PCOM. So basically, they are running all of the cards for consistency this time, including a stage 1, while still having like pretty much most of this deck's integrity. They're just dropping a Giant's Cape, which is like honestly completely fine. You do miss out on certain things, but these are the sacrifices you have to make with 20 card decks. Like I said, this deck is the best deck in the format, asterisk. You will brick, and it will be the worst deck in the format, but it feels amazing. It did brick in that final set that we saw, but like I said, really broken deck. You can go on easy win streaks just like you can go on easy loss streaks. So it's very hard to rate this deck, but I'm glad to see that it served so many players well. I think that the next tournament kind of tells a different story though. Like you saw, look at this top 8, you know, this top 16, you know, lots of different like ideas. But like the meta is kind of like, you know, homogenizing or like getting to a point where I feel comfortable making a tier list. And then the Godsley tournament happens. And it was also pretty much the same. It's very different. But that top 4, 3 ArcRaiTinas. Insane. 3 in the top 4. I think that the winner deserves a lot of talking about, so I'll talk about it. I think ArcRaiTina is top 3. I've always said it, no matter what. It might be number 1, it might be number 2, because I do feel like that Oricorio Greninja deck is really, really strong. But what separates Darkrai from every single deck is its ability to essentially tack anything to fix any matchup, right? Like, oh no, you're struggling into Oricorio. Well, you can add a Komala to your deck. You can add a Drampa to your deck. I think it's so cool that these cards in this deck is able to, you know, fix matchups, right? This person using a lot of healing, the double PCL. I think the healing version of this deck is the best, but also PCL synergizes with Komala. So if you attach in the active, you are able to PCL, wake up, deal 70, destroy Oricorios. You know, this guy running double Mars. Why? Because of the stage 2 meta, the Greninja meta, the Crobat meta. You see that, you're gonna Mars it, you rebuke it, and it's so cool to see this deck. I think this deck is extremely good. One of, if like a deck that I would consider bringing to that 10K tournament. The Guzma is just, again, a consistency card, might be better than Red in this meta at this point. Cyrus and Sabrina are just the cards that you run. Of course, Leaf to fix things. And yeah, no, this is just a good-ass deck. I think that my only real thoughts is that, like, congrats, and, like, again, players are running different things. We saw week 1, people were running Oricorio in their Darkrai decks. Now people are running stuff like this, right? And of course, you can still run a, like, kind of plain ArcRaiTina, right? Merker running just a kind of plain ArcRaiTina deck with just room for more supporters. So it's very good. And again, I think healing is so broken, and double Sabrina is also so broken. So this is how they beat Oricorio, is by Sabrinaing around the Oricorio, Cyrusing a weakened Oricorio, and it's a really cool way. I got to watch that in, like, top 16, a double Sabrina, let's end up doing that. So there are so many different ways you can approach your bad matchups. It's just ArcRaiTina. The best decks are made in that deck builder for the tournament, and if you can find the best 20, you can win any tournament with ArcRaiTina. I think it's a top 2 deck. It might be the best. We'll talk about my thoughts on what the best decks are when I talk about a deck that I feel is falling off. You know, a deck that I feel like is falling off is the deck that got second here, and it is Snorlax Giratina, and I'm talking about why I feel like this is falling off. Before, we should say congratulations. This player got second using an Elima to pick up the Snorlax from active. Really, really smart, allowing you to basically take punishment and then bring it back, and then bring in a Giratina, bring in a Greninja. So lots and lots of cool stuff happening here. What is my issue with this deck? With the emergence of Lele, and obviously, like, now we're seeing, like, even though Oricorio versions, ArcRaiTina, this deck has really, really, really bad matchups. And I talked about this last time, right, last week. This deck just has really bad matchups into all of the good stuff, right? We're seeing that its win rate is also dropping off compared to last week, where we look at its matchups and, like, it's posting a 30% win rate versus ArcRaiTina, 37% win rate against Charizard, right? And, like, yeah, it's beating decks like Magnezone Oricorio, and it is beating some of the, like, Greninja Giratina decks, which we're going to talk about. Like, it's beating the hell out of Oricorio. It's losing to the Tapu Lele version. That version is extremely popular. And, like, I just do not feel comfortable bringing a Giratina Snorlax deck to a tournament. I'd feel comfortable playing it on ladder if I know what I'm playing against. But going into a 10K tournament with over 2K players, I think Giratina Darkrai is going to be everywhere. I think that there's so many other decks that are going to be everywhere. Like, I didn't even talk about the Rampardos Garchomp deck that also destroys it, right? It just has way too many polarizing matchups that even if it got second, it is not a deck I feel comfortable using. It should be important to know that they lost 3 times and got a tie. So they were somehow still, like, I mean, they lost 2 times and got a tie. They were able to make it after 10 rounds of Swiss. But it was kind of like you know, like going 6-2-1, right? Or is it 7-2-1 in Swiss? A little, they were able to squeak by. But then, you know, they were able to win their matchups. But I do think that the matchups are extremely polarizing. And you do lose to a lot of really, really strong decks. I think that of the Greninja Snorlax versions, if I had to rank them, I think Oricorio Greninja Tina is the best one. Then I think Lele is coming up number 2, might even pass it by next week, who knows. And then I think Snorlax Giratina is in third. Still an amazing deck, but definitely falling off a bit. And I will keep that in mind going into that 10K tournament. And finally, another list I want to share, because we're always trying to keep up with the Japanese meta, is this list that got into the top 8. I think it got into the top 8. If not, it was a top 16 list. It was a top 8 list, yes. Gustavo, right? Using a kind of interesting version of the Decidueye Meowscarada, and you're gonna ask what has changed since like the last time I made a video. Well, our favorite Wind Trader Seagun, and this is a very blurry image, I apologize, made rank 1 with this list. And you're gonna notice the biggest thing is that they're running double Erica Lily. So they are going all in on healing. Seagun playing a Dartrix line with red card because you want that consistency. Obviously here, Gusta dropping the Dartrix line for PCOM, which is, again, that's just consistency. It's basically almost the same thing, but not the same thing. You know, running an additional cape, so everything is getting healing, and I think this is one of the ways to run this deck. There's a lot of healing, and that is what you're doing. You're just putting big, beefy stat sticks that are going to be what, 170 HP, 200 HP, you know, and just be really, really annoying and really, really hard to deal with. If you're running the Decidueye Meowscarada and you're looking for a way to update your deck list, this is what you should be using. And I guess a spoiler I already posted in my community tab, but for what the next video is going to be on, I got a 12 win streak after analyzing this meta with Charizard. Think about everything I just said. I just said that Tapu Lele is everywhere. I just said that people are going to be using Garchomp Rampardos to beat Tapu Lele, and Meowscarada just hit rank 1. You put all 3 of those together, and what do you get? A Charizard Tortonator 12 win streak. I can't wait for this video. That's going to probably be out either tomorrow or the next day. But there's so much. I love Charizard, so I'm so happy I finally get to talk about Charizard after what felt like a month of me trying, or 2 weeks of me trying to make it work, and I would never get a win on stream. Spoiler alert, there's a lot of alcohol involved in this one, but I'm super excited. And yeah, this meta is insane. There's a lot of decks I didn't even talk about. Like, I didn't even show a Garchomp Rampardos deck because that list hasn't changed. You guys know how Garchomp Rampardos looks. It's the same deck. It like literally has not changed. Like, let me just go over the standings, right? Let me grab the top 16. Azelma, really fun to watch. It's just the same deck list. It hasn't changed. Double Lily for healing. Have your Cyrus, you know, like you can remove a Lily if you want. Just a really good deck list. Very consistent. Really good at what it does. Has a really good matchup spread into a lot of random stuff. ArcRaiTina can be a bit annoying, but you have options. You can luck sack ArcRaiTina pretty hard. That's it. I have yapped way too long. I'm looking at my OBS. It says I've been yapping for 27 minutes. That's how you know this meta has so much. I guess let me end this with my top 3 right now. If I was going into this 10K tournament, these are the 3 decks I would consider. It is Oricorio Greninja. It is ArcRaiTina. ArcRaiTina is probably better than Oricorio. Okay. Number 1, ArcRaiTina. Let me not lie. ArcRaiTina, Oricorio Greninja. And ArcRaiTina is just because you have so many options, right? Oricorio Greninja, just a good deck. Broken, beats ArcRaiTina. Beats like just auto wins 100-0 so many matchups. In the matchups that it doesn't 100-0, it still has a playable matchup in 2. That's extremely freaking important to have in this meta. And Lele. Lele is broken right now. How will it be good in a week when people understand how to play it? I don't know, but I keep telling you that this meta is like a revolving door. But I do feel comfortable in being able to make a tier list video soon. So expect that like next week. This has been another Meta Monday. Hope you guys appreciate this type of content. Gameplay coming soon with Charizard. I'm out. Bye bye.